Ariana, so great to have you with us. In this episode with Ariana Stolarz, you will learn three main things. Number one, how to flip the script and use your accent as a pro and never as a con.
Number two, how leading like a mother can be your leadership superpower.
And number three, how to build case studies about your achievements so that you can be promoted, respected, and noticed. All of that in the podcast A la Latina.
The playbook to succeed, being your authentic self.
Let's go. Hola, welcome to the podcast A la Latina.
The playbook to succeed, being your authentic self.
Today, one of my favorite guests, Ariana Stolarz.
Ariana was born in Argentina. She is the Chief Strategy Officer of Accenture, which is the world's largest tech-powered creative agency. Besides her professional life, she's also interested in helping the world. Let me tell you all the things that she does outside of her responsibilities at Accenture. She is involved in UN activities. She is an advocate of sustainable development goals, and she's a board director of the Public Foundation, which is a non-profit media organization that harnesses the power of media to drive social change. Welcome to A La Latina.
Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you. When we started conceiving this podcast, Ariana, you were one of the first persons we wanted to bring to the table. What we're trying to do today and here overall is to allow us to precisely give women the playbook that they need, Latinas, to understand who we are, how do we transform that into a superpower, and get the real playbook on how to do it and how to get it there. So looking at your trajectory, absolute pleasure to have you with us. Let's get going.
Let's get going. So let's start with your career and the journey that you went through. When anyone looks at your career, your resume, your LinkedIn, it just looks like you had so much clarity on where the world was going and what you were great at. You started working on the first digital bank in Argentina. Now you are in the largest tech-powered creative agency. It looks like a linear path. Can you tell us if that's how it felt, or how did it actually feel to climb the ladder and to have this professional journey?
You know, it looks like clarity, but it was actually curiosity, right? So I remember growing up, getting my first job, having everyone saying, are you sure you're going to work on that thing, the internet? What is that, right? When everyone was working on CPG or banking, financial services, my sister, my boyfriend at the time, all my friends. And I remember thinking, I don't know, there's something about this thing called the internet, right? And it was kind of the same conversation we are having today with AI. AI is here and coming to replace all of us. And it was the same thing, but I remember thinking, I don't know, there's something about this. Imagine the possibilities, right? Imagine being able, I launched the first internet banking platform that was transactional. So imagine the possibilities of moving money from the comfort of your sofa. Imagine the possibilities of watching your favorite soccer game from wherever you are in the world, even if you don't have access to a television or you're not on a stadium. Imagine, so we started to imagine all these different things. Technology was there, but we needed that imagination to add into the possibilities, right? So what I would say is that, I had that dose of curiosity that, if anything, allowed me to understand that whatever we enjoy in the future is something that we create today, right? So I was always at the forefront of innovation in a way, understanding that it's on us to define what's next. It's on us to create what we're going to experience tomorrow, right? So that's how I started working. And then today, I continue working in different places, but always following that same premise of let's create tomorrow, but today.
And so I think that you're in the right podcast because it's exactly what we're trying to do. Yeah. Who said that Latinas cannot be at the top of the ladder? And what if we start actually learning how to get there? And that is what we're trying to explain. But before going there, I want to know about your career. So you basically came to the States. Just give us in a short, path, how do you get from one place to the other? And how have you done your literally the architecture of your life, which seems quite linear and seems quite calculated and orchestrated, and how do you actually got from one place to the other to be able to be today the managing director of one of the largest, agencies in the world, tech consulting agencies in the world, creative agencies in the world?
So it looks like linear because there are connective threads, digital, for example, at the core or innovation. But you know what sits at the core? People, right? So when I got my first job working, at the time it was Anderson Consulting, which is the old days of Accenture. That was the company I worked with.
circular
I know.
line.
There you go. So that was the company that I was working with, and the Lloyds Bank, which is a British bank. And as we were launching this internet platform, which was still home banking. You had to install a CD for your computer to be able to operate. And I remember thinking, you know what? This is not finance. This is not technology. This is a new way in which people are going to start interacting with the world. Like coming from a country where you would welcome and probably invite, the teller in that bank to your birthday parties, to your wedding, and then suddenly transacting through a digital device, that sounded very cold, but then it was convenient. And then when we start to add other layers of convenience into other lives, right, we realize that, oh, you know what, you can actually change consumer behavior and people's behaviors if you give them something, if there is a value exchange, right? So the connective thread then was and was not digital, it was the human element. It was trying to understand how people navigate the world, how people relate to each other through technology, how people use technology to live their lives and improve their lives. And therefore, then when I came to the States and after years of working in different places, always through digital and creativity, those were two key elements that have been present throughout my career. But the human element was the most interesting thing to me. And therefore, I went to grad school. And in grad school, I spent years studying internet culture, networking theories, sociology of media, right? So I was always fascinated to go deeper into understanding humans as we navigate this world. Because at the end of the day, it's technologies may change, but we are here. Mm-hmm. And technology should be put at the service of us, improving the way we do things or living better, healthier, happier, right?
I can see your passion and obviously your smarts, but besides your passion and your smarts, what made you succeed? I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of very smart people, very curious people that are not the managing director of Accenture Song today. Is there anything that you can share in terms of your path? What were maybe decisions that you made or moments?
Well, different things, right? But I would say I have this obsession with excellence and with work, right? So many times people ask me, it's oh, you're a Latina, you're a woman, you're an immigrant, you have all these things that look like barriers for most of us. It's how did you make it work, right? I made it work through work. When your work is good, when you give it all, when the proof is there, it's just not smart not to have you in the room, not to have you on the table, right? So I basically base my personal case and case study through the work that I produced, that I created, through inviting others to join me in that journey, right? It's how you engage others who might not have had that same type of path to join you in your journey. How you're not afraid of asking questions and maybe seek for some mentorship, even if it's not formal. Mentorship sometimes feel it's a commitment and that you have to meet twice a week at 9 p.m., at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. It's not. It's it's the ongoing drive to never stop learning, right? So all those things together, I would say, have been present throughout my career.
I admire your career. I know your career pretty well. I think that I have until now very little, maybe you keep on surprising me. Let's see of today. But at the end of the day, I really admire, and you have been on the, on the cutting edge of many things that were the first. So innovation is one of them. I want you to talk about the streaming of Maradona and the type of things that have made you proud through your career. But you said something that I think can resonate really strongly with a number of Latinas that probably are hearing our podcast today, which is, I strive to excellence. I work really hard. But how do you get noticed? How is it that all of us strive to work, at least a lot of us work really, really hard, but sometimes it's hard to get that mentor. Sometimes it's hard to get noticed. Sometimes it is actually being a Latina is a con and not a pro. So I'd love for us to park that conversation about how being Latina has been a pro or a con for you. How would you talk to younger Latinas about how to self-advocate, self-promote your work so that you can get noticed and get to the places where you are. But now let's go into your like proudest moments. Talk to us about like streaming Maradona and other things that you have done that make you, like make you proud.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I was moving here to the United States from home, Buenos Aires, and Diego Maradona was playing his farewell game. And
No la mano de Dios.
no, that's the most iconic game. But no, it's the day he decided to retire, and he was playing his game, and I was already here, and I wanted to watch it. Like many people around the world, they all wanted to watch Maradona playing his last game. How do you do that when there are TV rights? Right.
It was not possible. Let's just like establish that.
Exactly.
We couldn't stream live sports.
Right now it's like,
or anything.
maybe our audience would be like, what?
Well,
You couldn't?
because we're not
couldn't.
guys,
So basically,
it was not possible.
but we did it, right? So we did it. We challenged that idea, and we said, hey, there is this thing called the internet, and there is this thing called streaming. Streaming was not a word back then, right? Yeah. There is this thing that will allow us to maybe have a pay-per-view offering to people around the world who want to watch the game. Now, this is what I'm going to say. Learning by doing has been also a key element throughout my career. The reason I'm saying that is that the idea was great, right? Like we created so much demand. Imagine like people from all over the world saying like, I can watch Diego play his last game. That was great. The problem is that people were connecting to the internet through dial-up. So imagine like a fast-paced like soccer game, and then it's like, so the game was like cutting like every 2 minutes. The experience was like awful. It was horrible. And then I would say that's when I realized that like it's one of the key things that I do at work, and I have done like through the past couple of years, deliver on customer experience, which is like understanding that sometimes your ideas might be there, but the technology is not ready, or the conditions are not ready, or whatever is like not ready to actually deliver a powerful experience. And therefore, even though the idea was great, people were not really able to watch a full Diego Maradona playing 90 minutes of soccer, right? Now, I learned a lot from that. Like we all learned a lot from that experience. Those were still the early days. I believe it was 2001. So it was like still like very early in the days of the internet. I still have somewhere in my office, the cover of
2001.
What were you doing in 2001?
I know. I have a cover of a Times magazine from 1994. You can go search for it. And the cover was the strange world of the internet. It's like no one knew, is this like coming for us or not? And then I have a cover from the Wire magazine from 2010 saying the internet is dead or the web is dead, right? So, I mean, it's funny how like people go into these like dramatic like places instead of focusing on like how we can use these technologies to advance.
No, but wait, like, just to put it into perspective, I did my first concert streaming in 2010, and it was already, it was patchy.
Yeah,
it was like hard to put
2001.
it, and like it was Paul McCartney, almost like pseudos, because his songs were not perfectly well. It's like doing something in 2001 is like way
I
early.
barely had an email address in 2001.
Exactly.
And
Few
it's not my
people-
name, it's like a funky...
Few people had. So you were not searchable. I'll tell you something. Like now that we're going back in time with all these things, I launched the most successful. Now that's interesting, right? Do you remember Second Life?
Yes.
Of course. Second
I
Life
had
was
my avatar. Yes,
2007.
totally.
Like, I spent so much money renting land on Second
I did the
Life.
World Economic Forum.
Yes.
That's a
Total picture.
I took some of my classes.
I launched a Mana live streaming concert in Second Life.
All right.
Why? I don't know what happened with Second Life.
2007 maybe, or five, or like...
You're a trailblazer. You're a Hispanic star. I love that you're giving us, like already bits and pieces about learning by doing. There is a contradiction I find in Latinas particularly about like how insecure we feel about raising our hands unless we're 100% prepared to do something. We don't apply to jobs unless we feel, totally qualified. And at the same time, we're entrepreneurs, so we do go for it. So there is a contradiction, I think, that, like we have to, there's a tension in who we are as entrepreneurs on one hand, and then insecure on the other hand, to raise our hands and actually be able to. So I would love to hear more about like those traits and those qualities that you feel we have, since you're almost like a sociologist.
No, but I'll tell you something. Like I find this a lot, right? within the Latina community in particular, which is you achieved something, right? And that's it. You're so proud. You tell your tia, your abuela, your friends, you put the trophy, in your shelf, and that's it. You stop like pushing for more. You already have your prize. That's it. You had your moment. No, I'll tell you something.
You aim higher.
At some point in my life, I decided, thanks to my brother, I decided to start practicing Taekwondo. Right?
Yeah. I did not know that.
Is this a threat?
No, it's not. Actually, Taekwondo, it's a beautiful Korean martial art that's based on balance and respect for the other. And then you never go for a fight. You're actually always in that Zen mode of control, right? You need to understand your surroundings. You need to control your body. You need to think first. It's a fascinating space to explore. And it was a very humbling experience. You go there, and I went there as a young adult, I would say. And you go there, and then your recognition, right, which is translated into color belts, has something to do, it's absolutely actually associated to your hard work and perseverance, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you start with a white belt that signals and tells everyone, I just started doing this. And then maybe you have someone sitting next to you who's, I don't know, a 10-year-old that has a belt of a better, a higher color, right? And then that means that they've been practicing more than you. And then you respect them. You have so much respect for their dedication. Colors mean dedication, right? So then you learn something that I have applied since then, for life, which is you keep advancing on colors, right? Based on progress, dedication tests, all these different things. And then by the time you get to black belt, if you get to black belt, but by the time you get to black belt, you didn't reach your destination. You reach your starting point. So you don't get your trophy and put it on the shelf when you get to black belt.
Okay.
That's a starting point, because once you're a black belt, you start adding stripes.
You're kidding.
No, of course.
What color?
I'm a first dan black belt.
You're a black belt?
I can. Yes, I can.
I'm telling you, she's threatening us.
I can jump. I can break this table with my. I'm not gonna do it. Don't worry.
I never knew.
Yes, and the thing is that, and I miss it so much right now. I'm so busy. I can't even find my time to practice. But the thing about that is which is so important, is that it's the opposite to what we were talking. It's not that, I got my belt, I'm gonna put the trophy, I'm gonna let my friends know, my family know, everyone's gonna be proud now, next. No, that's the beginning of, okay, now then you're ready, use this as power, you're ready, you have all the tools, you have no excuse, keep going. Go deep, right?
Is that is that the analogy for Latino women, maybe leaving their career at a mid-management level when
there are different reasons why people may leave their careers, right? So leaving a career may have something to do with, I don't know, having a family and not having the right support, not having the right pay, to have someone who can help you, maybe care for your family while you're working. I mean, there are many reasons that, in particular, certain communities, like the Latino community, are suffering more than others in terms of advancing at work. But I would say that's the link to Latinas putting that trophy as, I made it.
Yeah.
I got my thing. I got my 5 minutes of fame. I don't need to keep pushing. And that's your first moment to actually start into the next level.
Yeah.
That's when you get your promotion. That's when you push for the next level. That's when you basically make sure that you lead that presentation. You're not just a contributor. That's when you are the one who's owning it.
I am totally biased, but I actually think that it is not that Latinos keep their trophy and go. It's that once you get from white belt to yellow belt, the teacher leaves you. And now you're on your own. And now you have to figure out how to get to the next belt. We don't have the support mechanisms to actually keep growing. We don't have those teachers that keep on encouraging us. We don't have the environment to keep on doing. So I actually want to take the blame of Latinos only and put it as an opportunity for people to understand that we Latinas, particularly, we have those elements, passion and perseverance. And that combined, there's a book that I'm reading right now called Grit. And my son says that I'm saying it wrongly, is grit, like Grit, not greed. So, but
It's very similar to
It's
me.
great,
I was like,
exactly.
you said exactly the same twice.
Which says that in in military services, in the in key. Keystone, West Point,
Yeah.
in West Point, half of the people that enroll drop. And those that stay are the ones that have the hard work and the perseverance, that keep going, that keep trying. And no one keeps trying more than Latinos.
Yeah.
No one has the pedal more and the passion more than Latinos. So it is not about us only. It is about the environment that probably wouldn't allow us to get to that place.
I wonder, I mean, I don't have the data and I haven't read the book, but I wonder how many of those that stay had mentors and had people that told them, it's going to be really hard. Like, if you want to give up, let's talk. Like that mentorship, that sponsorship, it's probably very important. And that's why you have like military families. Because
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Background and environment and so on, many things matter. But talking about like greed or like how do you pronounce it?
Yes.
I was this year at the Cannes Advertisement Festival in France, and all of a sudden I started looking at the largest session, like on attracting the largest group of people. And who was talking? Ariana Stolarz. And what was she talking about? She was talking about accentism. So what was your talk about?
So I moved from Argentina to the States, and going back for a second to something you just said, I moved to the States 2 weeks after September 11. And I remember people saying, "Are you crazy? You're going there now." It's like following that same
curiosity.
It's like, yes. I mean, I'm not going to stop now. If anything, this is a moment of opportunity for all of us as humanity to find new solutions together. So, in any case, I landed here, coming from there, and there I was like so driven. I was frankly unstoppable. I was working in the digital space. It was like a space that like few were exploring. So it was signaling already that I was adventurous and I was like driving my own path and all these different things, right? So I moved with that drive. I moved here to the US and I started to work in different projects and in advertising. And a couple of months in, I'm having a conversation with my boss. I was here already in New York. And he said to me, he announced to me, with that accent, you're not going to get any far.
What?
With that accent, you're not going to get any far. Look, I mean, I want to say, like, the comment, of course, stopped me. I'm not going to go with, I knew best. No, it stopped me completely for years. I started to become, like, so self-conscious. I would create work and have others presenting my work. I would always go back to the mirror and try to practice my English language pronunciation like a broken record, trying to make sure that I would not assimilate to the places that I was coming from, but I would like try to belong by sounding like a local, right? I did that like for many, many years. It was painful. It took a toll in like so many things, including growth. But including like self-confidence, which at the end of the day has something to do in your daily lives. It's not just work. And one day I decided I have to stop this. I have to fight this. This is not okay. I started to feel like really bad about it. Every time that I opened my mouth, I was like, I don't know, maybe did I say greed right? I was like, and I was feeling it, and I decided to change the narrative, to flip the script, and to move into the so-called general market advertising world, which is, working in a big agency. At the time, it was a very hot shop. Everyone wanted to work there, and I was invited to build the strategy department. And when I had my first meeting, everyone was expecting me to present. Of course, I didn't share any of my imposter syndromes and like all my insecurities. So I had to lead. And the additional complexity was that the presentation was done over the phone. So you have to speak slowly and then you have to elaborate your thoughts. And so I was shaking on the inside. You can tell I was so afraid of them, like even asking when people ask you, say, what's your name? Ariana, no, what's your name? Ariana. Like if you don't go all in and sound like a local, like people like ask you the question, can you repeat that? So that little question, can you repeat that? make you already like feel so self-conscious, right? So I go all in, I say hello. The client on the other line stops me right there and she's like, oh, who's that? Who's that new person? Imagine, like I start to shake like a leaf. And then she goes and says, I love your accent. You know, is that I can still remember her voice. I can still remember her voice. I can still remember the inflection of her voice. I can still remember my face. I can still remember how relaxed and liberated I felt in that very single moment of having someone validating your accent and in front of others. You know what that is? So that day, like that was an inflection point. Of course, it took me some time, but that was an inflection point. That day, there was a before and after. There was a before and after because I realized that accent has nothing to do with the way you speak, but everything to do with the way you are, with the way you do, with the things that you make, with the passion you put into things, that you have to actually lead with your accent. Don't hide it.
I was telling Claudia that when we started talking about the podcast, I thought I have to get rid of my accent because we're going to do a podcast in English. The audience may not speak Spanish. I want to make sure that everybody understands what I'm saying. So I literally hired a coach. And it was the worst hour of my life. She criticized every word I said. I couldn't understand the difference between like what she was saying it sounded like and what I was supposed to sound like. Yeah. It was impossible. But I was going to go through it. And I mentioned it to people and they were looking at me like I had two heads. They were like, we understand what you're saying and we actually like your accent. Yeah. So I'm kind of growing into it.
There is a difference, right? And I think it's important for all of us who come from like any place, not just like Latin America, who speak English as a second language, right? Which is, one thing is clarity. Mm-hmm. Like in communications, like clarity is super important. Like language exists so we can actually understand each other, right? So you need to make yourself understandable. Like that's for sure. Right? But accent, like if you search online right now, there are hundreds of offerings of accent reduction classes. Don't do that. Don't you ever do that. You're going to kill a part of who you are. I mean, I win by leading with my accent. I decided one day I woke up and I said, you know what, actually, this is my biggest differentiator. Because accent means like different and different is beautiful. And the way I earned that seat at the table is by being different. Because if you're the same, it's like, who cares? And I want to say something else, which is like, I became so obsessed with language after that and accents and accentism that I started to get into some research that basically is telling us that this, which is, some people call it like broken accent or bad English. I love to call it bad English. Bad English is good. Bad English is like really good. You know that English is the most spoken language around the world. 1.4 billion people speak English around the world. You know what the breakup is between native English speakers and non-natives? 400,000 people speak English as native speakers. 1 billion point something people speak English like us. Think about that for a second. You know how many people speak Spanish? Over 500 million, meaning more people than native English speakers. And basically, the research is telling us that when you get in a room that's full of people speaking bad English, right?
You have more empathy.
No, conversation flows. Everyone understands each other, regardless of where you are around the world. You don't need to be speaking to another person from Mexico. You can be speaking to someone from India. You can be speaking from someone from China. Conversation flows. There is understanding, which is the purpose of language. The second a native speaker gets into the room, conversation stops. Understanding goes down. Everyone becomes like very self-conscious. The person that's speaking native English comes with lots of acronyms or references that are not even like relevant to you. It's like, let's kick the ball out of the park. Is that a good thing? Who knows? So that's the point. It's like the point is that, which is like super simple. Like we need to forget about like language. I don't know why we are so obsessed about it, right? Language is just a way we have to understand each other. So as long as there is understanding, voila, let's keep going.
My husband would say, and actually he says that very publicly, that the formula of our happy marriage is that he understands 2/3 of what I say. He goes like, there's a good third. I have no idea what she's saying, so I'm like, yes, honey.
He's acting like that. But I mean, I guess if we achieve our goal with this podcast and with this episode, but with this podcast in general, everybody that is listening and has an accent will forget about trying to get rid of the accent and feel confident. But the other thing that we want is for people, for native speakers and non-native speakers to think of people with accent as people that are bilingual. And there are things that happen in the brain when you are bilingual, right? You're more flexible, you are more comfortable with ambiguity. And I mean, you can tell us how important those characteristics are in the workplace today.
100%. Like I'll tell you, since the Cannes Festival and since the talk, I still receive messages. It's like crazy. It's like how many people have like resonated with the message, like that were there or just like heard from someone or got access to the talk, or it became like a thing, right? The sad part of that is that the takeaway is that they can relate, which is sad, that so people can relate to that message. Now, they can relate for many things. Many are actual native English speakers, but still may come from a place, because don't forget, when you go back to the dictionary, accent is defined as having a particular way of pronunciation that signals maybe a socio-economical reality. Like, you know what I'm saying? So basically, so many people, even native speakers, are embarrassed or too self-aware of their accent and feel their accent is something that's getting in the way, right? So lots of people relating to that. Now, the positive side, if we flip the coin, the positive side of all those messages that I'm getting from so many people, and in some cases not about the accent, but about their names. People cannot pronounce their names. You know how hard it is? You start a meeting, the first thing that you're asked to do is to introduce yourself. Oh, my name is, and then people are, what's your name again? It's horrible. Juan.
Yeah, Juan.
It's like, there's no Juan, it's Juan. It's like, but you know how you feel? After that, that's it, you're mute. So you cannot be that person out there. You can't, because you feel like you're being judged and evaluated by everyone around the table, right? But the other part that I'm getting out of those messages is, you know what? It's sad, I can relate, but I feel free now.
There you go.
It's like, I'm going to move to the US. I'm going to move here. I'm going to move there. I'm going to stop caring about this. I'm going to lead with my accent.
And because there is a trend to Latinidad, according to the Hispanic sentiment study that we launched at Cannes, it's very clear that the pride, the sense of pride that we have has moved from low to high. More people are coming out as Latinos. More people are feeling, proud of their values. Language is going up. Family and culture is going up. So no wonder your message is resonating by now more. And I think that what we need to do is take this trend to Latinidad, take this trend to identity, to empowerment, to real absorption, and lead young Latinas particularly to having that moment, inflection moment that you had, which I want to call the Aztec moment. So when you realize that actually being a Latina, having an accent is a pro, not a con, that you have to come from the shadows to the light, that you have to lead with authentic, with your own self to what you're doing, because it's going to help you to get to where you are. So it seems to me that moment happened for you in that inflection moment, that Aztec moment of like, whoop, flipping it up and coming out and finding, having that Eureka moment is when you find something, when you found that yourself, being your authentic self was going to help you to lead.
And it also helped, that moment, that Eureka moment, helped me make sense of the past, decade that I spent here, in this country without understanding my place in it.
Right.
You say things sometimes when you give talks and I'm always there first row, and you say things like, oh, I learned that I was Hispanic, I learned that I was Latina when I moved here. Because you never put a label into that's not a thing, right? So you move here and then suddenly you're part of a group you didn't know you were even invited to the group and you've been assigned to it, right? So I remember when I moved here and I started to work in the creative space, right? That still we were emerging from years of having people trying to belong by assimilating into the local culture, right? And then we start to see some elements of acculturation, which was I'm not going to assimilate. I'm going to take some elements from my culture, from this culture. I'm going to make some. That's okay. Now, I remember some moments. I'm going to say all these all the dates are going to be wrong, okay? But it's the timeline I had in my head right now. I remember maybe 94, 90 something, maybe a little bit later. But I remember Shakira for the first time becoming the face of a soda brand like Pepsi with Hips Don't Lie. I remember oh my God, there's a moment here. That's mainstream. It was not created for this group, this club.
Totally.
We were like, right? And then I remember Ricky Martin going to, I believe it was 98. He sang the World Cup song, The Cup of Life. And then I was like, the world is singing his song. I think I shared with you this story, but when I first moved here and before I started to work in advertising, like a dear friend, Alberto, he's from Colombia, but he lives in Miami. He came to me and he said, like, hey, I have this idea. I'm joining my other friend, also Alberto, also from Colombia, and my mother's trainer, Alberto from Colombia. And the three Albertos want to create this thing. Here's the pitch. And he said to me, we're going to merge salsa with aerobics. And we're going to hire Carmen Electra, who's going to jump out of a helicopter. She's going to land on this beautiful Mexican beach where they're going to dance together. Beto, Alberto, the trainer, is going to be waiting for her. We're going to shoot that, put it on a CD-ROM, sell it on univision.com as an infomercial. And then my friend created Zumba. The reason I'm bringing this is that you had Shakira, and then you had Rick, and then you had Zumba. 2001, here is a revolution in the world of fitness that has permeated almost every single country. The number of countries that we have at the UN is like, what, 193? Okay, they are in 180-something countries, right? Where Latin rhythms are dominating a way of having fun.
Yep.
And if we circle back with how I started, which is, it's not about the technology, it's about the human element. Humans were telling us, working out takes work. Who wants that? I have to do it. Yeah? But then Alberto, the three of them realized, you know what? Dancing with others, Latin rhythms, that's fun. Who doesn't want to have fun? Who doesn't want to dance like the rhythm of like Latin music? Sign me up. And he created Zumba. And that's why following that human truth, that human element is that he created such a powerful thing that's permeating now mainstream.
So they flipped the script of workout. No?
Yeah,
Flip the script.
totally.
Yeah.
And talking about flipping the script.
Let's talk about it.
Let's go.
We one of the things that we want to do with this podcast is to flip the script, because we think that it's in the benefit of Latinas, but also in the benefit of companies, for Latinas to be comfortable in the workplace. Like if you think about the amount of mental bandwidth that a Latina employee and any diverse employee spends trying to fit in, if we could quantify it, I bet you it's like billions of dollars of wasted energy of people that instead of being focused on their task, they're focused on fitting in. So we want Latinas to feel like they don't have to work on that they can dedicate all their bandwidth to doing the work. And part of that means taking some of the characteristics that are inherently Latinas or associated with Latina women and have had kind of a bad name and flipping the script and saying, yeah, we are X, but instead of seeing it with this lens, what if we see it with this other lens? And is there any characteristic of Latinas that you think it's misunderstood or that we could flip the script besides the accent, since we already spoke about the accent?
And let's look at the issues of corporations today. We're already everything that everybody would want. We're bicultural, we're bilingual, therefore we're able to adapt. We have the grit, we have the perseverance and the passion, and yet those elements are not seen today, and they are seen as stereotypes. Passion, loud, pobrecita, familismo, too close to me. How do we flip the script? What are things that you have seen in companies? What are things that you have, you use yourself that could be
I love the, you're too close to me, because I get into every single meeting and I go and I say, I'm going to hug you. And then you see people like, they don't know what to do. This like hug that's like almost like crazy. I go all in, I'm going to hug you. And not just that, there is a study that was done by my previous agency. It's a fascinating study on personal space. And the country with the smallest personal space in the world is Argentina.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so yes, that we really allow closeness. So I feel actually very comfortable when I have someone sitting close to me. So in any case, in terms of like those values, I would say there are two in particular that I used to lead with that are, of course, typical examples of being Latina, something that we, all of us who at least were born outside of the US, bring with us. One is, I lead like a mother.
Oh, I love that.
Okay? And I lead like a mother means like many different things. Like I was leading as a mother before I became a mother, right? So leading as a mother is something critical in terms of team building, caring for the people that are working with you.
Yeah, the familismo, exactly.
Of course. It's like, because you're not alone. Those days of you're on your own and you have to fight for your own career, like, no, you can't get anywhere. Like, creativity in particular is a team sport, right? So you either bring everybody in and you know how to keep the family flowing and working, and, we know how to deal with, like, drama, right? So that's actually very important, right? So I lead like a mother. That's one thing. And the second thing I would say is,
how do you make sure that people understand that's a pro and not a con? How did you train your coworkers? How did you train your managers? How did you create cultural environments in your organization to appreciate that leading as a mother means leading, not familismo?
Right. Yes, and not like overprotection.
And not like, she's too weak, she's too social, she's too this, or like that, which is what happens right now. The attributes that we're bringing are not seen as corporate attributes. How did you do that?
Or maybe they think we should be in HR, but they don't think we should be like the CEO.
Exactly.
I'll go back. I'll go back to like my obsession with excellence in work and the actual thing that I produce. Right. When you have the results. That's the thing. It's like, we're like, what's the typical thing that you're asked to when you present something? Oh, show me a case study. So when you turn into your own case study, little by little, you flip that script, right? So if I'm telling you, this is how I lead, and I'm leading as a mother because I lead with care. Care, I think sometimes we forget about like words, and there's like all this like lingo associated with the workplace. Sometimes we forget to talk about that thing, little thing, care. Mm-hmm. Because I care about the work, I care about the people I work with, I care about the people I don't work with, I care about my clients. I care. When you care, which is a key characteristic of like leading as a mother, I mean, that's going to have a direct impact in the work that you create. And when that's the case, someone will want to replicate that. And the only way to replicate that is to follow your recipe. So go lead as a mother.
And care is such an important word in a automation like world where artificial intelligence, like where so much robotic is going to take care. There's no care. There's no human touch. So those services and those areas will be important.
That's one. But the other one, if I may, is, like if you go back home, right, and you have a cold, you don't go maybe to the doctor to get a diagnostic and take a test. And like, you just like call your abuela if she's still around, or someone with the like abuela as a mindset, okay? And then you just ask them, what do I do? And she will probably say, hey, you know what? Take some honey with sugar and put some like...
Tequilita, mija.
Exactly. Tequilita for some sotol.
Eh?
Put some sotol or lemon, something. It's like, you'll be fine. And if not, your plan B is go to a doctor, right? Go to the pharmacy. All to say that you have to be resourceful, right? Like it's like critical. Like, in today's world where you have to navigate, like I work in a big corporation, okay? The size of my company is the size of a country. We have 730,000 people, right? You need to be resourceful in order to know and learn how to navigate this world, how to activate people, how to get to resources. And of course, you like face so many barriers, but you have to keep that resourcefulness. You have to know that it's okay sometimes to, go with the honey, the tequila, and the lemon instead of like waiting for certain things to happen. Because otherwise you become too robotic, right?
Yeah. And when I hear the two that you just said, I think the first one can't live without the second one. Because if our audience takes us the learning that being motherly or being caring and delivering results is enough, I mean, a lot of people deliver results, but they don't build a case study. They don't show up. They don't know how decisions are made in the company and who has to know that they actually deliver the results. So it's deliver the results and then make sure that you understand how the company works and who has to know that you deliver those results.
And I think that, look, if I would have known when I was 30 years old, a number of the things that I know today, that I hear today from you, information is power. And we need Latinas to be empowered, to be embracing their power by knowing their power. So if you are leading as a Latina, if you're leading as a mother, if you know that you're resourceful because you had to navigate your parents coming, maybe as immigrants, maybe no English, maybe you're the first person in your family that graduates, maybe you had to navigate and translate for your parents the bank statements and the doctors. You had to be resourceful to be able to, advocate for yourself because no one was there to advocate for you. You are resourceful by definition. So just empower, take it and know that that's an incredible resource and an incredible talent and a skill that you have to bring to corporations. Once you know and once you embrace that knowing, that power to give you power, then you can claim your space. Then you can come and put your flag and say, this is a space where I can be. This is my space. This is me. And then together we can go and conquer those places where we have to be. But I think that it all starts by knowing. And if I would have known when I was 30, probably, we all could have been in a very different position. What?
I tell you something like that. You reminded me. There's another thing that, as long as we can, right? We should try to bring to the meeting room, which is a sense of humor, right? Because in many cases, that is the sense of humor that helps unlock so many things. Because sometimes we need to understand that people on the other side, maybe they don't have an agenda. Exactly, but that's the point. It's maybe they don't have an agenda. Maybe they just don't know how to engage with you. Look, you come. Hello, Claudia's coming. It's some people don't even know what to do with that. So as a self-defense mechanism, they just put that. I remember my first job back home. I got into a meeting room, and then my boss at the time said to me, "Coffee." And then I said, "No, thank you." But that's the point. The point is that he was a bit confused and shocked, but then he started to laugh, and then we were and then he understood. Hey, sorry, if that's your actually, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to make you coffee, And thank you, I don't want one. So, but that's the point. The point is that sometimes it's let's not take ourselves too seriously, and let's understand that the people are not necessarily wearing their gloves all the time. And when we get into the meeting, we don't need to go on a fight. And then maybe there is a little bit of education that needs to happen to liberate not just us, but them. And then you have a better meeting.
Okay, so I feel like we have a lot of things to tell our 30-year-old selves, but is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to give your 30-year-old
No, I just want to come back to this. Yeah, so much fun. Let's do this again.
Is there any, in your curious mind and technology vision, when is the time machine coming up that we can go back to give ourselves
but in all seriousness, so, self-doubt it's our biggest enemy, right? And I don't know how we can stop that, but if we have too many people saying to us, with that accent, you're not going to get far, right? We're going to keep self-doubting. But if you have lots of people reminding us how beautiful our accent is, and I'm using this just as a metaphor right now, we're going to keep going forward. So what I would say is that, if anything, pay it forward. What I'm trying to do right now is now that I understood, what happened to me. So 3-4 months ago, and it's been 15 years of that moment when that client said to me, I love your accent. And in one of your events, at the Hispanic Leadership Summit just last year, this past December, I'm on stage there with Gaby Natale on stage. And then she comes to me and says, Ariana, I always have this question for you, because she gave a TED Talk, I believe, on accentism. And she said to me, Ariana, have you ever thanked that client that said to you, I love your accent? I was oh. I never even got the question before. It's no. Well, look, it's been 15 years. I don't remember her name. I never saw her because it was a phone call. She was a client. There is always that distance between the client. On top of that, I changed my job, and don't forget, right now it's okay to talk about those things that you've been struggling with and your weaknesses or perceived weaknesses.
Because you made it already. Yeah, so it's easier, yeah.
15 years ago, it was not okay to go there and say I want to thank you. Your comment just unlocked me. No, right? I guess it's been 15 years, so I never thought about it, so I said no. And then she said, well, you're going to make someone happy. And I was how do I even do that? So I started to ask people, but it was impossible. I was leading to nowhere. I had no cues into how to find her. And then 3 months ago, I'm invited by our leadership team to a dinner very high, senior level C-suite dinner, right? And it's with Marriott, and I haven't touched that business in 15 years. I was just invited to dinner to have like a good conversation, discuss about like some possibilities. And as I'm engaging in conversation with the person sitting next to me who I've never met, we were at some point like running out of talk. And I'm like, hold on a second. This person that said this to me was working at Marriott at the time. I'm going to ask him, maybe he can give me a cue. I know it's been 15 years, the chances are zero, but still I'll try. So I shared my story with him, and then his face, he turned pale and he's like, Ariana, the person you're looking for is our global CMO and she's sitting behind you. I can still feel it. I shared my story with her. We hug each other. Like I posted that. That was actually the post on LinkedIn that got me the invitation to speak in Cannes about the story. The point is, I thank her. Like I said to her things like, I remember saying to her, it's like, I don't know how to even thank you. Like and she was like, you don't have to thank. I'm like, I have to thank you. And I'm hoping that we in life say more thank you for those like little acts that actually travel so much and can create so much space for all of us. So let's pay it forward. So what I would say to someone is like, be always in both sides, the receiving side of, receiving that advice and mentorship. But that day when you make it or when something like, just pay it forward.
And pay it forward, being your unapologetic self. Lead a la Latina.
A la Latina.
Well, thank you so much, Ariana Stolarz, for being with us today.
Thank you, Ariana. This was great. We learned a lot. I took a lot of notes. I'm sure our audience is going to really benefit from all your insights and your generosity. Thank you for paying it forward.
Thank you for having me.